One of the Liberal government's priorities before and after the election has been fulfilling its promise on $10 a day childcare. So far, the government has reached agreements with 7 provinces and 1 territory. The feds say they should see affordable childcare in 5 years or less. Ontario, Canada's most populous province, is among 3 provinces that have not signed on to Ottawa's plan. Karina Gould is the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Minister Gould, thank you very much for speaking with us today. Ontario, Alberta and New Brunswick have yet to reach a childcare funding agreement with your government. I'm wondering, where do those talks stand right now?
Well, those talks are ongoing, is my understanding. As you know, I've been the minister for just over 24 hours now, but I know that all of those conversations are happening with officials in all 3 of those provinces.
And so do you have any sort of timeline as to when we might expect to have some progress or some announcements here?
Well, my objective is as soon as possible, because I know that for families in Ontario and Alberta and New Brunswick, this is crucial for them, and they are very excited to get more affordable daycare.
But for the people who are living in those provinces right now, is there, how quickly can we expect? I know you say as quickly as possible, but is there sort of a timeline here at play?
Well, as I said, those conversations are ongoing, and we're having pretty intense discussions with those provincial governments right now. And so my objective is to get this done as soon as possible. And so I'm really eager and looking forward to working with them.
Alberta had complained that Quebec was given funding with no strings attached when it comes to these childcare agreements, while other provinces are not being given that same option. In the next rounds of negotiations or those talks that are taking place right now, are you willing to compromise on that?
Well, let's be clear. Quebec is a very different situation when it comes to childcare than other provinces. They already have a province-wide early learning framework that is affordable. They were the pioneers in Canada. And so their requirements were quite different than provinces that need to go towards a deeper affordability and to build more spaces. So we've always taken regional considerations into account when it comes to this, but our objectives are quite simple. Reduce childcare fees to $10 a day in the next 5 years, create more spaces, and create more opportunities for ECEs. And so those are the objectives that we go into the negotiations with provinces, and we've been able to do that with 7 provinces and 1 territory already.
So on one hand, you're saying regional considerations are at play, but on this one issue, what Alberta's been asking for, there's not going to be compromise there.
Well, we have our objectives, and we are having those conversations with Alberta, but we want to make sure that families across the country have access to affordable daycare, that we're creating more spaces, and that we're creating better work environments for ECEs. And so those are the objectives that we go into for each of these negotiations, and that's what we aim to deliver for Canadians.
Ontario has 1.5 million kids under the age of 9, more than any other province. The Ford government had expressed some concern that it could end up with a program it can't afford in the long term. How are you going to address that?
Well, I think, if the Ford government is serious about a strong economic recovery for Canadians, then childcare is one of the best ways to do that. I just came off of an election campaign where I was knocking on doors in Burlington, Ontario. And let me tell you, Ontarians want this deal. They want affordable daycare. We pay some of the highest costs in the country when it comes to daycare. So this is something that the people of Ontario want, and it's going to be really good for our economic recovery.
Well, the people want it. If the Ontario government in the long run can't end up sustaining a program, what good does it do?
Well, Katie, that's a really interesting point, because we've actually seen real tangible evidence from Quebec that this actually is a social program that's also an economic driver, and it pretty much pays for itself because of the revenue generated by mainly women re-entering the workforce. And so there is a clear economic argument to doing this. And so quite frankly, I don't buy that it's a program that the province of Ontario can't afford if 8 other provinces and territories can do that. So I think it's time to get this deal done.
Outside of childcare, what do you see as the main priority in this new role for you?
Well, as you mentioned, childcare is definitely the #1 priority. But I'm also responsible for our poverty reduction strategy, as well as our social innovation and financing programs. And so I'm really excited to get to work on both of those because, the pandemic has really demonstrated where the cracks in our societies are, where in our society are. And so for me, this is a real opportunity to, get back on track with our economy, but also to make sure that in this recovery, we're not leaving anyone behind.
So when you say poverty reduction strategy, what specifically will you be looking to do? What is something that we can look for that your government is going to launch to get closer to that goal?
Well, as you know, again, I'm 24 hours into the role, so I'm getting briefed up right now, but that's one area that I am excited about. And we're actually on track to meet our objective of reducing poverty in Canada by 50%. And so my objective is that we meet that goal and that hopefully we exceed it. So that's one of my number one priorities.
Okay, so if you're, how is it that right now you're on track to meet that goal? What is it exactly that is needed to? I know that you just are into this role for 24 hours, but is there something specific there that, Canadians who are watching this right now can take away as something that they can look for to see, okay, this is coming down the pipeline, is getting toward that goal?
Well, I think actually childcare is a really important way that we're going to help get to that goal, because we know that for some of the lowest income Canadians, having access to affordable childcare actually means that they can take on new opportunities in the employment sector that they might not have been able to. So that's one area. I mean, the other area that I think our government has already worked really hard on, and I'm excited to continue that work, is with regards to the delivery of the Canada Child Benefit. So there's a whole range of issues, and with regards to our poverty reduction strategy, it's not just me. It's working with my colleagues, Minister Qualtrough, when it comes to the entire employment insurance program. It's working with my colleague, Minister Kara, on seniors, old age security, and the guaranteed income supplement. And so it's really working across government to take the steps and the measures that we need to reduce poverty here in Canada. And of course, working with my colleague, Minister Hussein, on the very bold and ambitious housing strategy that we have, because we know how important affordable housing is in tackling the homelessness crisis.
Minister Gould, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.